The mailman doesn't deliver on a Sunday.
If you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
Anthony for three. Bang! J.R. Smith! We just saw men fly. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Cleveland! This is for you!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I am Ronan Gaine. Joining me, as always, Chris Nambu. The NBA Finals are set. The Dallas Mavericks took care of business last night, taking down the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games, and they will now face the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals beginning June the 6th. Going to be diving into the various storylines that we have to look forward to in this series. But before we do, I just want to thank you all so much for listening and making this your first podcast for NBA coverage. Remember, you're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think. You're on Apple Podcasts, you're on Spotify. Leave that 5-star review. You do that, we'll keep producing that content. So the finals, a lot of fun storylines with this one. Kyrie back in Boston, Porzingis back to Dallas. Luka's first NBA Finals. Jason Kidd going for the coach player double championship. Where do you want to start with this? Let's get into the most recent thing that happened. The Wolves taking down the Mavs taking down the Wolves. What do you think about that?
I think your favorite phrase is "there's only one place to start," and I think this time there's actually one place to start, man. It is Luka Doncic, 20 points in the first quarter, and just dominant throughout this series, dominant throughout the playoffs. I'm not so quick to crown him as the best player in the league, like a lot of people are rushing to do right now, getting their takes off. But can we take a second to look at this player who's already blossomed since he came into the league as one of the offensive superstars of this league, but really putting a stamp in his career here as one of the greats of this generation? Because what he did to the Timberwolves, who were legitimately the best defense in the league, the defensive player of the year in Gobert, what we saw from Ant defensively, Jaden McDaniel, like those guys couldn't do anything to Luka Doncic and his greatness this series. Just got to start there.
Yeah, I mean, it was something. It was a sight to behold, that game last night. Luka made it very clear after Game 4 he was not impressed with how he played, and made it very clear that we weren't going to see the same thing. And then comes out straight away in Game 5 and outscores the Timberwolves by himself in the first quarter. I mean, you can't ask for much more from your superstar than to set the tone like that. And he just had that look in his eye. I think obviously Luka's that kind of guy. He's going to get hate wherever he goes, being the talent that he is, and he thrives off that, and he thrives off losing playoff games. I think he's got the highest points per game after losses in the playoffs in history, and he added to it again last night, dropping 36 points, and Kyrie obviously chipped in as well, dropping 36 points. When the two of them are on it, it's pretty tough to beat them. And TNT actually had an interesting stat last night that when Luka has a teammate score 20 points, he's 20 on 11 in the playoffs.
Wow. I mean, that
3 and 10 without.
We can look back and know that that's true without looking at the numbers too, because just thinking back to their last run, who else is helping him out? I mean, obviously he had Brunson on that last run, but they didn't have the role players that they do now. And we'll absolutely take a minute to highlight the role players, because that it's the Luka and the Kyrie greatness that we're focusing on right now, but throughout the playoffs we've had the chance to see how good this defense has been, see how good the role players have been in their respective roles. But just thinking about right now what Luka did and watching how he did it, when he starts to get hot in that first quarter, when he hits those 2 threes, 2 contested step back threes, and then the defense really has to like spread out, get really high up on those pick and rolls, and then he's got defenders on his back. Okay, now he's hitting those contested floaters. Okay, now you have to bring up Gobert a little bit. Okay, now obviously he's hitting those lobs that he's been getting all season long. So like the amount of iterations of defense that the Wolves had to go through in the first quarter alone, it made it feel like the Wolves were not trying hard enough, but it's like when he's hitting everything, like the statement, like what are you supposed to do? Like how do you guard that? He's not beating anybody with his crazy athleticism. He's beating them because he's able to hit it. He can just get to his spot. The way that he can use his pace and deceleration and reacceleration, like it's crazy that again, just the best defense in basketball was not able to slow him down. And then as soon as you see that, and then Kyrie starts to getting off in the second quarter, like that, the game was over halfway through the second quarter, and that's something that we're gonna look at in the next series. We'll cover it, I think, a little more in depth next week in terms of what exactly we'll see from both these teams. But the Celtics have to be watching that game and thinking about how many different lines of defense they need to put out there just to defend these two guys. And it's kind of scary. Like they've been closing out like crazy all postseason.
Yeah, no, that's the big thing with this next series. I need to see Boston win like a clutch game against this Mavs team to truly believe in the Boston Celtics. Because like having Luka and Kyrie like that, like it's so tough to compete with that. Having two guys that you can have 100% belief are going to make the shots coming down the stretch. It's such a benefit for the Dallas Mavericks. And now the Mavs have taken down the number 1 defense in the league. They've taken down the number 4 defense in the league, and now they're going up against the number 3 defense in the league. And like the talk is, and it is the feeling that like the Celtics have got 4 guys that can defend Luka and Kyrie pretty admirably. But that was kind of similar with OKC and kind of similar with Minnesota. Maybe only 3 guys. Maybe you think like Anderson, McDaniels, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Those 3.
Oh,
But
don't forget Anthony Edwards. I mean that Anthony Edwards, I think he.
did I say did I not say Anthony Edwards?
Oh yeah.
So like it's kind of like that, and then you're like looking at that Boston. It's like those are pretty much similar. Maybe you say Holiday is probably the All NBA first team type player that maybe the Wolves didn't have, but I don't think it's going to be as simple as they have those more options that are going to be able to stop Luka and Kyrie.
Yeah, and I mean, the Conley's a different defender and does not have the same strength in the post that you get from Derek White, that you get from especially Drew Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, another guy that they had to deal with at the point of attack, and Wolves giving me a tough matchup. But yeah, I think you're right in terms of just simply, juxtapositioning those teams, putting them on top of it, and like comparing their performance. I don't think you can say the Celtics are going to be that much better defensively. Now, I think that it will be a lot tougher for the Celtics too. We don't want to jump too far into it, like I said, but the path that the Mavs have had to go through, you mentioned, I want to talk about for a sec, because do we want to talk about the Celtics in the way that we are right now? I don't like it. I don't like the path topic, the jump ship from the Mavs for a second, because this is something that's going to be talked about a lot. If the Celtics ultimately win the finals, people are going to be talking a bit about the teams they had to face and how easy it was for them to get there. And it's just kind of the reality of it. And I hope it doesn't take away from the greatness that they've had throughout the season and kind of the growth that we've seen them had. I feel like they've grown a bit, even though they've had a little bit less adversity than Doncic has had, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, this series, touch wood, the Mavs will have all their players on the floor for each game.
Yeah.
And I think if that happens, I think you can give the Celtics credit. Because there's no argument to say that they wouldn't have made it out of the East had the teams they're playing been fully healthy. The fact is they've got lucky. The injuries have gone their way. Obviously they've been without Porzingis, but them being without Porzingis and having Horford to come in is such a less of an impact than like teams, the Cavs losing Mitchell, with the Heat losing Jimmy, the Pacers losing Halliburton. Like that's just completely stark contrast to what the Celtics are having to deal with. I think as long as this series is both guys, Kyrie and Luka, stay healthy, I think you can give the Celtics credit if they come out on top of it. Yeah, it was easy to get through the East, and yeah, maybe some people will say that they have to win another to kind of make people respect this championship.
Jaylen Brown still said 7. He still said 7 in the next 10 years, and that was like 4 years ago. So
Yeah, I
they
mean,
got 6
that's,
more to
that's
go.
what they're looking at, but like it's I get the conversation. I just think I'll be able to forget about it as long as the Mavs are healthy and if the Celtics are to go on and win the title. Because like we said before, regardless of it, this season was they made the moves to make sure that they were winning the championship. You obviously can never make sure that they're in the finals. They've done their basically they've done the absolute minimum they had to do. Now can they go on and do what we expected from them?
Yeah. Like on one hand, it's like I don't want to take away from it, but there is that truth there of like the amount of injuries that they faced, and I don't think Tatum can ever. He's already went through that arc of being the young guy that was celebrated. He was too good too soon, and so was the team around him, and they're already facing like late successful team criticism where even if they win a finals, it's going to be like, oh, that's not enough, which is it's crazy to me. So I hope we can celebrate it either way. But detouring back to the Mavs though, and intersecting a bit with the Celtics, we have to talk about Kyrie. And I, as a fan, I'm so happy for Kyrie. I'm so happy to see him playing good basketball, and I'm so happy that we're past, the conversations we've had to have before about who he was as a player and off the court, and like it was never a good conversation for a guy who's truly like a joy to watch, a true joy to watch, like somebody who people turn their TVs on and just watch the game because of him, are inspired by the play he has. How many players in the league right now are inspired by him? So to see him like in the amount of joy he has on the court right now, the amount of like humility that he's grown to have, like the person that he is, that you can see clearly on this team. It's such a crazy turnaround. And I sent this to you last night, but that video at the end of the game with Luka and Kyrie embracing, and Kyrie and Jaden Hardy embracing, a guy that he's really been raising up there, and a guy who's given them a lot through his leadership. And then he's embracing Mark Cuban, the owner of the Mavs. And we know Kyrie's not had great history with ownership, with GMs, with coaches. And you see Mark Cuban clearly say, "Thank you for being you." What a like seminal moment of a guy who the person that he was looked at as the problem everywhere he's been before this. Kyrie is a problem. His personality is a problem. Like he just needs to just like play basketball and not. Thank you for being you. So the person that he's evolved into for the Mavs, not just the player. Like forget the player aspect, the leader that all the players talk about his leadership, the things that he's constantly saying and how he acts it out as well. Like I'm super happy just from like a human perspective to see the growth from what a couple of years ago, all the stuff that we were seeing from him to today. It's a beautiful moment, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's been absolutely amazing, and it's slowly kept on turning up as this season has gone on, and we're really starting to see it in this postseason. And like Kyrie's always been one of my favorite players. Like I loved him when first watching him playing with LeBron. He was unbelievable. Like, and like to see the bounce back that he's had after the decision that first making an encore decision, thinking that he needed to be the number one guy, then realizing that wasn't exactly for him, and then going to Brooklyn and wasn't really on court stuff. It was the off court stuff that led to bad things happening on the court. And then now he's got another fresh start out in Dallas, and he's focused on basketball again. He's developed into this leader. He's developed into this guy who's willing to commit to playing on the defensive end. He's there inspiring the others to do the little things, inspiring the others to make sure they're doing all they can for this Dallas team to win. And that's not an area where there's ever really been signs that Kyrie was that type of guy. So it's really cool. Like I was saying to you, like it really is true. We all mature at our own rate, and it's taken some time, but Kyrie really is now developed into that leader guy, that guy that guys want to play with and guys want to run through a brick wall with.
Yeah, and I think it'll be. I hope the. I mean, it's not going to be a positive homecoming for Kyrie to Boston, of course. And I mean that's all sportsmanship, right? It's like you're gonna get booed. You're gonna get that energy from the crowd, but I hope that it ends up becoming like good competition in the end, and not some sort of sour experience for the city. Me being from Boston, I hope it's something of a positive after all the reputation that this city is kind of dealt with, unfortunately. But
he's gonna get his heat as long as he rises above it and continues to perform. That then it's just all fun. As long as it doesn't affect him, as long as he doesn't have dumb reactions like flipping all the fans off like he's done previously.
Yeah, hopefully we're kind of done in that regard. For the Mavs overall, before the season started, they were plus 2,500 to win the title. A lot of teams ahead of them. Obviously, things changed at the deadline, and let's just start there. For them to have made the moves that they made, that I very distinctly remember being happy about it, happy for the Mavs. Like, okay, these are solid moves. Daniel Gafford, great. You really got a super solid running mate. And then you'll be able to alternate him with Derek Lively. That's going to be cool. And then PJ Washington, who I was like, that is not going to be their godsend defensively. Like, he's never shown it. What is he just going to show it all of a sudden and be a key point to this defense when he's never done that before, never been shown how to do that before? He's just going to do it now in the most important part of the season, in the most important potentially part of Luka and Kyrie's partnership here. That's just going to show up. Okay. And all these things happened. So, I'm happy.
Don't judge a man until he's out of Charlotte.
Is that the point? I guess we could say the same thing for Terry Rozier, right? And Gordon Hayward, what he scored? 0 points in the playoffs. But so we'll apply that to them too. But man, I can't possibly think that the Mavs ownership truly thought that the outcome of the trade deadline was going to be this. They're not here. They're not here without Gafford or PJ Washington. PJ has like, if you look at his playoff stats overall, not insane, but it's the moments he's had and it's the confidence with which he's shooting. He does not let up. And I think this is exactly what we've talked about with the Mavs all season long. All their guys under Jason Kidd have looked comfortable in their role. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what their role is on the offense. And it does not matter if PJ Washington misses 7 shots in a row in the fourth quarter. If he has an open corner three, he's taking that. He's taking it confidently. There's no overthinking. They know what they're supposed to do around Luka and Kyrie. And what we see from Gafford too, man, like 30 blocks in the playoffs, just start on the defensive end. Doubled Gafford's number. Lively and Derek Jones Jr. combined for almost 60 blocks in the playoffs. They're obviously the best interior defense in the league. And that defensive identity coming from these guys, like, I sitting here now, we never thought of this. We never thought of the Mavs evolving into this type of team. Before the deadline, we saw that they still were not the defensive team they needed to be in the finals. And they just answered every question we had for them.
Yeah. And you got to give credit to Jason Kidd as well. I think I've often been critical of him as a coach. He's shown himself to be on a higher level than I guess I probably ever thought that he was going to get to as an NBA coach, considering what we've seen from him in the past. And I got to give him credit for this year, especially watching certain things in the playoffs. The adjustments that he's made have been interesting, and just getting all these guys on the same page and getting them to buy in is that's obviously a big part of being a coach. But like Gafford, especially this last series with the Wolves, his defense has been unbelievable. His paint protection in that series against Minnesota was absolutely insane. And like having the rotation between him and Lively has just been massive. Like we've mentioned it before, like the Mavs crapping out last year was like one of the best things that one of the best things that could have happened to them because they were
Yeah.
able to bring in Derek Lively. And like, I didn't even think he had this in him. I knew there was a future there with him, but the level he's been playing at in the playoffs has been way above what he was doing in the regular season. And that's so impressive to see from your rookie center, a guy that usually with a rookie, you're kind of like, all right, let's just see how he gets on in the playoffs. Let's see how this goes. We're not going to judge him too harshly if it goes badly, but he's not taking any plays off. He's not taking anything for granted. He's going out there and playing his game, and it's been a beautiful thing to watch.
Leading the team in plus minus the playoffs.
Did not miss a shot in that last series.
Did not miss a shot. And that's not to say it's just all easy dunks, like contested dunks, tough getting under the rim around Gobert, and like Derek Lively too. And this was highlighted by the broadcast, and I'm glad that Van Gundy love broadcasts with him and Reggie Miller. They do a great job breaking down the game. But the passes that he had in the short roll, fantastic. When the defense is up on Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and they need to dump the ball to Lively in the middle of the floor, for most bigs, that's a tough place to be. You need to make the right play. Players are off of you. You need to make the right pass. And he constantly kicked to the right guy and got the Mavs. He was the fulcrum at times, especially every single time that defenses would blitz the pick and roll. He was the fulcrum of that offense, getting the ball moving. And that's not something we expect from the rookie. And to put it this way, our conversation around Derek Lively when he was drafted was, this is a great project for a guy around Luka Doncic. Maybe in a couple of years, he will be this finished product to help them get to the finals. So as a whole, we didn't think about the Mavericks being like a finals team beginning of the season. And for him specifically, we definitely did not think he was going to be the guy to be doing what he's doing right now at all. And the fact that he's drawing Tyson Chandler comparisons right now is like insane. And it's fitting for, the Mavericks, for them to be in the finals and for him to be getting those comparisons. You're not there without a guy like that as well. Who do we not miss here? We got to make sure we hit all the important ones. Jaden Hardy. Quick shout out to Jaden Hardy.
Yeah, it's great in that last series.
Essential.
He just kind of played that kind of hectic role. Like either he was going to come in and go off, or he was going to come in and at least just kind of take a few fouls that were needed. Like, it's kind of, you're taking a shot on him, but he brings that high energy. He brings that aggressive play, and the way that he plays, it's almost a bit more realistic and reliable compared to a Tim Hardaway Jr. for this team. And they needed it. Like, there was certain moments where he came on and just provided that little bit of spark, got a bucket, drew a couple of fouls, just little things like that the Mavs really needed at the time. And that was an interesting switch up, because I think that happened from the start of this series. So it was something that I think they must have planned for, that Coach Kidd had planned for going into this series. Just thought that he could offer that bit more that Tim Hardaway couldn't.
Yeah, and I mean, Hardaway did not look good. And it's fair, he's been injured, but clearly we've seen Hardy supplant him. And the minutes that he played were so important. I mean, just like obviously they don't win this game in game 4. But in the 12 minutes he had 13 points. In the 11 minutes he had the game before that, 7 points. 12 minutes before that, 8 points. But yeah, all that to go along with, bearing the load of the offense. When he goes in there, they give him the ball. He is running the offense. And those are such important, like 10-minute spurt, like 4-minute spurts here and there, like 2 important parts of the game where they can give Kyrie and Luka a little bit of rest, and they can go to Hardy. And Hardy is doing a great job getting by his defender. He's not drawing the best defender on the floor. I mean, that's Kyrie. So they can have a few possessions here and there where Kyrie and Luka is a prop. Jaden Hardy gets to go to work, and he's shown that he's been a good passer. I think that there are times where, he could be a little bit better at finishing, and then you put him off ball, and he's been very aggressive shooting the ball. He's not hesitating. And again, this is a Jason Kidd thing. Like, everyone knows their role. Nobody's hesitating when they catch and shoot. And that means a lot to me. I think that is very clear that they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing and they feel comfortable in that. And before I forget it though, we jump back to defense. Just one number I want to mention before we move on from it. On the Gafford Lively, Derek Jones Jr. front, Anthony Edwards, and I think we can transition to the Wolves here. Anthony Edwards went from shooting 64% in the paint against the Nuggets. You saw how he destroyed the Nuggets in the paint. He broke down the defense, made it difficult. What was tough for the Wolves this time around is they couldn't generate offense in the paint. Anthony Edwards went from 64% against the Nuggets to 43%, 15% below league average in the paint. And that is something that Anthony Edwards needs to do. And that is a credit to the Mavs. That is not a detriment to Edwards, because I think this is a tough series. It was a physical series. A lot of those are regular season calls that he's expecting. Same thing with Cat. But man, for the Mavs to do what they did defensively against Ant, I think that was a series there. Talk all we want about Luka and Kyrie. They're not here without holding Anthony Edwards to 43% around the rim.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think one thing I also noticed that the Mavs role guys are gonna have to get that 3-point shot falling again. They combined for just 14 triples. This is just Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington, just 14 triples in this series. They had 32 in the series against OKC. They're gonna need to find a little sweet spot there in between if the Mavs are going to be able to take down this Boston Celtics team. Like, they need their guys to be hitting especially when they're getting open looks, when the defense is drawn to both Kyrie and Luka Doncic. That's going to be something that's going to be very interesting to see if they can pick it back up. Before we get on to the Wolves and the Pacers, few final thoughts on the series with Boston. What version of Kristaps Porzingis are we going to get back? And is his health crucial for the Celtics, do you think?
Oh my God, it's vital. He is the key to a confident win, a confident championship. I'm shaky without him there. And have you seen the videos of him shooting?
No.
So he doesn't look great. I don't, maybe those are older videos. They're from a week and a half ago. So he could look totally different from a week and a half ago. But he's not getting lit. Like, I know he has a set shot, but that lift that he's getting off of his bad leg, like, he still looks like he's favoring a little bit. I don't know if he's ready to, like, this is not, like, I have not heard any bad reports on it. So this is just totally just voodoo right now, thinking about it. But knowing his injury history, I'm a little worried about that. A lot worried about it, really. But good thing he has rest, because the answer to that is absolutely. I mean, you need Kristaps Porzingis. You need him defensively, and you need him especially for the pick and pop. You need him for the pick and pop. The Wolves were not able to really get to that for Karl-Anthony Towns. Mavs dodge a bullet there. Karl-Anthony Towns is a very inconsistent series shooting the three. Chet Holmgren also had kind of an off series shooting the three. Don't really care about Jalen Williams, obviously. So the Mavs in the last couple of series have not really had to worry a whole bunch about the pick and pop. Didn't have to worry about it at all against Clippers. That is a massive X factor to this series. If Kristaps is fully healthy, that's going to be a very difficult challenge for the Mavs bigs to deal with that and still do what they're doing in the paint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why it's going to be pretty key for the fact that Maxi Kleber is back. That's definitely gonna give them an advantage there. And even if Porzingis is not there, Horford isn't terrible at that. I know Porzingis is better, but Horford
still shoot 43% on pick and pop threes.
Yeah, like he still offers that threat as well, which is obviously big. And like, my thing with Porzingis is the type of player he is. He's gonna take time to get back up to speed. Like, he's not, even if they say he's healthy and he's back in game 1, I feel like it's going to be like game 3 or game 4 before we really see him back in any sort of flow. He's not that type of guy who can have, like, once he's probably nearly a month off at this stage, and then just come back in and be right back to the guy that he was before. The Porzingis is not that type of player, and I just I don't see. I feel like it could be a struggle, even if he is back. I'm still a little bit worried at what version of Kristaps Porzingis we are actually going to get. And then the next thing I'm looking at is what's going to be more valuable in this series. The fact that this is the Celtics' second trip to the finals and they have that bit of experience versus like what Kyrie can offer to his team to make them a little bit more comfortable in what's the first finals experience for everyone else on the team.
I think I'm not worried about you know, the Mavs at all in terms of the experience part at all, because the leadership is top down, and Kyrie obviously has that. So I think that's a buffer, but everything going through Luka as well. I don't think Luka's going to shy away from the moment. And I think Luka's body language has been great. It's funny that we don't talk about that a lot, but Luka's body language.
We
has
were a
been
little bit
fantastic.
worried early in game one, but he moved on pretty quick from it.
Yes, and I'm glad he did, because that like I'm a huge Luka fan, but those are the moments where I'm like just very frustrated with it when he doesn't have that body language. But he's a guy. I mean, dude, he's been playing basketball since he was a child. He's been playing professional basketball since he was a child in Serbia. Like, he's not in Slovenia. He's not worried about this moment, and I don't think that any of these guys have shown any shake in their resolve at all, especially against some tough moments throughout this postseason. I'm not worried about that. I think that the Celtics, though, that they're really going to rely on that experience, and it seems like they always say the right things. They always say the right things. I'm curious to see how they're going to deal with some real adversity, facing a team that's fully healthy, facing a team that's battle hardened. I mean, the moments the Celtics have had, yeah, they had the game winner against the Pacers. That was crazy turnaround where they coughed up that game, and the Pacers coughed it right back up to them for that overtime win. And that, besides that moment there, like, they have not had the same level of highs and lows, I think, that the Mavs have had. So if anything, just in recent memory, I think the Mavs might be a little bit more battle ready, albeit maybe a little less rested. So what matters more, I guess, of throwing it back to, like, being like that battle readiness or being well rested, like, that's tough to say.
Yeah, I mean it's that sort of weird one where you're like, obviously the guys are having to play so much they need your rest, and then it quickly turns to, oh, but how much time do you want to have off? How much time, like, you're gonna get rusty then, like that, like those sort of things. Like, everyone's got their thoughts on that. It's a mentality thing. It's the intensity that you can bring to training sessions and little things like that to keep the teams fresh. I think it's obviously important for the Mavs to get a few days off. We know Luka is dealing with a few little things. He started, like, midway through the OKC series, he started to look a little bit more healthy, but I don't think it's going to be a bad thing for him to get a couple of days just to be able to rest up. And one more fun thing here, right? MJ and LeBron both won their first NBA championships in their 7th playoff appearances. This year is Jason Tatum's 7th playoff appearance. And then on the flip side, Luka Doncic is going into his first finals. He would be joining a very elite group if he was to win. Well, if the Mavs are going to win, he's going to be Finals MVP. So he'd be joining a group of Jokic, Giannis, Duncan, MJ, and Magic if he would to win Finals MVP in his first NBA Finals appearance.
I don't count out Kyrie Irving, man, as a Finals MVP. I think that would be kind of the great turnaround, a great story for them if that's where that goes, because for it to be Luka's team and kind of the Andre Iguodala type of Finals MVP.
I get that, but I'm also like, Luka will score the same amount of points as Kyrie, but also probably average a triple double. So like that's if they were to win. So that's where my mind would go to it. I just don't. He'll just have the too much overall impact for him not to be for him not to win at all.
Yeah, a lot on the line, obviously, and so many storylines. You mentioned Kyrie going back to Boston, Porzingis facing his former team, and I wonder, I'm very curious what the relationship is like between those two, uh, and if we're going to see that same level of just pure competitive hatred that we saw from Luka against Gobert. Like Luka just relished the opportunity anytime you switched on to Gobert to just destroy him and embarrass him. And if we're gonna see some switching from the Celtics, if he's on KP, what kind of story are we gonna see there? Him against the guy who was supposed to be his running mate, but never worked out.
Yeah, that's it. It's good. Like there's a lot of various storylines to this that are very exciting. And obviously, we're gonna do a deeper preview of this series on another episode before the finals get underway. But what's your call? I'm I've gone with my head so far in these playoffs, and this time I'm gonna go with my heart, and I'm gonna call the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games.
In 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to upset my Celtics friends up here. It's hard. This is a hard one. I really I believe in Luka and Kyrie at this point more than I do in Tatum and Brown as closers. So with that, I would say Celtics.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Mavs in 7. Mavs in 7.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well, like hopefully we get a good series. That's always the biggest thing with the NBA finals. You want to see a real battle, and obviously it's really cool. These two guys that are in the conversation for being the next faces of the NBA. Both of them have the opportunity to win their first NBA championships this year and really start the primes of their career, which is really cool. I will happily flip my pick if I actually see the Celtics take down.
Oh, you'll happily flip your pick. Okay. Good to know.
If I see the Celtics actually like if it was game 1 and they beat them in the clutch, I would start to believe in Boston. That would show me Boston mean business because I haven't really seen them do that yet. I know they did it against the Pacers, and we're going to get into that now, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same thing. They got gifted that, but let's go on to the two losers of the conference finals.
Yeah.
We'll start with the Pacers.
Sure.
I know they've just had a dream run. No one expected people. I was like one of the few people that expected them to actually reach the playoffs this year, and they ended up in the Eastern Conference Finals. And everyone was saying, like, praising them for keeping it so close and taking the Lakers award for the most competitive sweep after last year. But they should be a little bit angry with the way that it finished. I know they're going in and they've overachieved, but that game 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They gave up 4 shots in 40 seconds. And that's how the Celtics won that game. And of course, the Celtics made the most difficult of all 4 shots that they had. They gave up 4 shots in 40 seconds without putting up a shot themselves. Like, they blew that game so badly. And that just that was their chance. That was their chance to just have that element of doubt creep into Boston and to really kind of shake this series up. And the second they lost, they missed out on that. I was like, okay, this is done. This is the sweep. That was their moment to get the win, and they weren't able to do it. And then, of course, Halliburton going down was also crucial because, like I was saying to you, Nembhard can be so good for the whole game, but he's just too loose, too chaotic in those clutch moments when you need him. The defense was there. The defense was great from Holiday and that, but the turnovers late in the game. That was such a killer. The way they were closing games was just terrible.
Yeah, and I think 2 things. One, turnovers I think are a natural part of this team when you don't have Halliburton on the floor because very few players can play with the extreme pace that Halliburton plays with and not turn over the ball as constantly as one would. And looking though big picture, because that's what I want to do for both the Wolves and the Pacers, because they lost to the better team, obviously. And I think there are some questions, but not major questions. I think both these teams have had such telling runs, not just amazing runs, but telling runs, because it tells us a lot about their future. And the Pacers in particular, and Halliburton said it himself, why can't our game translate to the playoffs? Why can't we play fast in the playoffs? And they do, and they did, and it worked. And they didn't have enough against what ultimately is, statistically the best team in the league, a 64-win team, a team that had the best chance to make the finals. So, hats off to the Pacers for pushing it that far. But look what Nembhard did. I mean, he scored 24 points. Andrew Nembhard. If you're telling me Andrew Nembhard scoring 24 points in an elimination game against the second best defense in the league, with no Halliburton, with no Ben Mathurin, like that's a great success. Yeah. To see how well balanced the offense looked when they can toggle from the fast pace, high pick and roll with Halliburton, and then slow things down with Siakam in the post, the inverted pick and rolls that they can do, that they just started getting going at the trade deadline. That's a great start. To see that Ben Shepherd actually can be an NBA player in a playoff moment, that's a great start. To see that Obi Toppin is not a waste of talent and that he is a really valuable sixth man, that's a great start. Like, there's so many positives from this. To see that TJ McConnell is still like a dog and he can really put out in the playoffs. Like, there's a lot of things to build from in this playoffs. And I think, they leave. I think they maybe hungry is the word, maybe not angry. I think hungry because they know that they were right there with the Celtics. Like, the Celtics did sweep them, but they have ways to grow. They have a young player in Ben Mathurin who they hope continues to get better. They have other young guys who could continue to grow from this experience. I don't think that this is just a start for them. And, I think Celtics have a really big respect for that matchup and the way they talked about it, because they were that competitive. They were that close.
So you have no fears of this being a Hawks type of situation, right?
Not at all. Not at all. Because I don't think this, like the Hawks, I mean, that was so much on the back of just insane Trae Young performances and underwhelming performances for the other team. And I think the Pacers, they showed it as a team. Halliburton didn't play the last 2 games. Yes, they lose those games, but they look competitive in these games. Like, these were like they lost by 3 points. They lost by 3 points. The Derek White had to save the game. Like, and there's no Halliburton. Again, Andrew Nembhard is leading the team. It wasn't even Siakam. Siakam went 8 of 18. Said someone else do it. So that's when your other guys show up. And Turner still looks great. I mean, there's so much. There's so many ways this team can grow. I really think so. And I was wondering.
They're still really high on Jarvis Walker as well. There was really no place for him in the rotation this year. He's still a guy that word around the Pacers is that they really believe he's going to be a big part of their future. So let's see if it's next year that he starts to find a place in the rotation. I think they're going to bring back Obi Toppin. I think he showed he can really thrive in this situation. He was so impactful off the bench in this playoff run. Mm-hmm. TJ McConnell as well. Can he stay at that level? That, like, was this just a flash in the pan? Can he continue to be this type of player off the bench for them? Because if that's the case, then that's just unbelievable. Like, him and Toppin, their bench as a whole was great, but him and Toppin off the bench, and I think we might start to see more minutes for Isaiah Jackson as well, who's really an athletic big too. Like, the future is really bright there, and especially even I think there's other teams in the East as well that you could maybe have a more realistic chance of dropping off than the Pacers. So that like kind of gives you a bit more feeling that they can kick on again next year and do even better. But a tough way for them to go out, but obviously a great playoff run and a great way to start your playoff experience with a run to the conference finals.
Yeah, so big picture, nothing changes. This team is good. They need to get healthy. Halliburton needs to nurse up that hamstring, and they're going to keep growing. The great season from them. Great season. I think they'll keep getting better.
I just hope that next year is the year where we get Halliburton for the full year, and there's no lingering issues injury wise that have kind of plagued him the last couple of years. Timberwolves. A great
We
year.
might have very different perspectives on this, I'm suspecting.
I think we do. I think they know the move that they have to make. And I think that move is upgrading on Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is good, but I think he's shown in this playoff run that he is not going to be the Robin to Ant's Batman. Not saying they have to absolutely do that this summer. Not saying they're in a rush to make that deal. But I think if they're looking to cut some of their expenses, I think Cat's going to be the one to go, and that's the area. That's the next trick for the Timberwolves, because just look at the Dallas Mavericks. Look how much they've changed since their last Western Conference Finals appearance. Like the changes, there's gonna need to be a change. I don't think there's gonna be a panic. There's not gonna have to. Doesn't absolutely have to happen this summer or anything like that. But I think watching this series, we know Ant is gonna get better. We're gonna see improvements in his playmaking. He's gonna figure some more things out. But I'm not so sure we're gonna see that sort of growth from Karl Anthony Towns. And I think he's proven that in this series, like 19.6 points per game, 24% from three. Like those first 3 games he played were just absolutely awful, and that not good enough. That cannot happen.
It's always going to be a financial issue with him because of the way that the league is structured now and the penalties that they're going to play for having 3 max guys. And because I think one major point, and maybe this is like too much of a reduction of everything that happened, but they beat the Nuggets. Did Cat have his best series? No, he did not. He had a pretty bad series against the Nuggets, but having the size and skill against Jokic and having his body out there, and for him to be able to also be a big that pressures Jokic defensively, that pulls defenses out. Like defenses have to respect him. Like there's a lot more that I think goes into than just the raw numbers. Like there's so many plays where Conley or Ant were getting free runs to the rim because defenses can't peel off Cat, and those are hidden benefits to the team that he has, other than the loud fouls that we see all the time, the shooting percentages that make it tough to want to pay him that much. So it's really difficult, because the question is, if you don't have Karl Anthony Towns out there and you just have Naz Reid, can Naz Reid do all those things? Maybe 80% of those things. If Naz Reid can do 80% of those things, then you have to beg the question, okay, can we not upgrade, but maybe can we spread out that value over more playmakers? They need more guys who can be on the ball for sure, who can create their own dribble. Perhaps you need to even think long term about Mike Conley, who's honestly looked young and fresh as ever. Like he was fantastic that series and played his role perfectly. But I think they need a little bit more than that. You can't expect Conley to do, more than he's doing. He wasn't asked to do a lot, but he was perfect in his role.
I'm kind of wondering with him, are we going to see like some sort of kind of like a little like a Kyle Lowry type of drop off after looking great on a deep playoff run 1 year, and he kind of was surplus to requirements then the following year. I know it's not the same situation, I think, but that's something to maybe just keep an eye on with the Timberwolves.
That was, yeah. I mean, we saw Kyle Lowry's decline a bit in his. But before then, like it was there. I think we see that same bounce from Mike Conley, especially with the shooting from the perimeter. But I don't know. I'm not quick. I guess what I'm trying to say overall is I'm not quick to say blow things up, because they beat the defending champs.
Yeah.
They beat the defending champs. Anthony Edwards is getting better. Continuity, as the Kings will tell you, is not always the answer, and you need to get better. But do you get better defensively? No, because you were the best defense in basketball. Do you get better offensively? Well, I mean, I guess you would argue that you have one of the better on-ball creators in this league in Anthony Edwards. You have one of the best shooting bigs in this league. You have a great rim runner. Like, you have all the pieces, and maybe it didn't come together against the Mavs because Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic and their defense went off. It was just a one series thing. Like I don't know if I walk away from this series being like the Mavs are really lacking. Like I need to dig into the tape a little bit more to feel strongly about it. I think they need a little more scoring off the bench. I mean, Jaden McDaniels, he's a gift when he's scoring 20 points.
Demand more. I think that's an area where they can continue with this run. They gotta demand more from him. Like if he can be a guy that is somewhere around, if he's like either side of 20 points more consistently, that takes that extra little bit of pressure off of Karl Anthony Towns. And that's an area where you can think of this team continuing to stay this way and continuing to have success.
I don't think
Demanding
he's
more
that
from
guy,
him.
though. I don't think he's that guy. Like I think the extent that we see from him, which is great, where he scores is, he's attacking closeouts. When the ball's moving and the defense is scrambling, he takes really good advantage of that, and that's when he's scoring his 20 points. When he's really hitting from three, and those are the kind of holes that he fills offensively. But I don't think he's a guy that when Anthony Edwards is getting doubled, defense is recovering well, and then now there's 10 seconds left and stuck in the corner, you have to dump it to someone else to score the ball. Karl Anthony Towns has 5 fouls in the second quarter. Like who's going to like actually break down the defense and run that third iteration on offense? Like Jaden McDaniels isn't doing that. Like Jaden McDaniels is not taking anyone off the dribble on top of the key. Like you need a guy who's also going to be able to break down the defense aside from Conley because of what you just said, because we don't know if Conley's still going to be, functional in the next couple of years. You just never know at that age. You don't know how the body's going to respond to that. And, Conley in his own right, he can work that pick and roll, but he's also not creating a whole lot by himself. If it's a big ask to be like, oh, you need to get another, great scorer. But in this day and age, I mean, that's what it came down to. Who's closing for each respective team? Because it's that close. And Anthony Edwards versus Luka and Kyrie, because I can't really say Anthony Edwards and Cat because Cat wasn't consistently there. So he didn't really have another guy to support him in that right. So maybe that's the answer. Is if you are going to make a move, it's going to be for a guy that you can realistically expect to provide elite level scoring from the perimeter.
Bring back D'Angelo Russell.
Oh, stop.
But the Timberwolves are kind of in a not too dissimilar position to the New York Knicks, in my opinion, in what they're lacking. I think you can make the argument the Wolves are a better team. That's fair enough. They're number one defense, whatever. But I think both the Knicks and the Timberwolves are both teams that are looking to improve on their second star this summer and looking to get that guy who can really match and complement that their number one guys. So it's going to be there are two teams that are looking to do it.
So you're basically saying there are two teams that don't trust their inconsistent bigs to perform in the playoffs.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. There's so many teams, and this is going to be a really fun off-season conversation. Tuning up these teams. How do we tune them up? But what is the value of these guys after a run like that? What is the value to another team that you're going to sell them on this guy that clearly couldn't cut it for you in the playoffs? Tough way to sell it. Tough way to sell it. If Cat's going to be a scapegoat, you're lowering the value of your scapegoat. But we'll see where they go with it. I think big picture for both these teams, though, they've had excellent runs. They were both. One was 3 games away from a finals appearance. The other one should have been 3 games away from a finals appearance. But respective to where they were at the start of the season, unbelievable turnout. Unbelievable success. Change things on the margins maybe, but I think they're both on really good paths. And we have faith in the Pacers. The last thing I'll say about the Wolves, though, is non-basketball basketball related, but organizational related, because we know that there's some turmoil in there. They don't know who the ownership's going to be. It's literally like going to court. So ownership, as we know, is a huge part of how these teams can be stable in the near future. And GM Tim Connolly has put this team together. Left the Nuggets, went to the Wolves, built two fantastic title contenders, and he could leave if he wants to, if he opts out. And interestingly enough, if he stays and completes the next season with Finch, that would be the first time the Wolves have had lead executive and head coaches for 3 consecutive seasons since 2003.
Wow.
A wild run of inconsistency and turmoil for the Wolves over the years, to end which I think is a success this season, and hopefully it continues.
Yeah, the ownership, that's almost like that's almost the biggest thing for this Timberwolves. They like that needs to get figured out so they everyone knows what's going on. They need that stability there. Like that's an area that could completely derail what this team is doing at the moment, and that's something I don't want to happen. I know I'm calling for them to make big trade and trade Carolyn Towns, like whatever. They need to figure out the ownership, and they really just need to remain stable, have the right people making the right calls in the position that they're in now, because they could absolutely be right back here next year in the conference finals, whether they make big moves or not. I think they're good enough to be able to get back to this level. So the ownership is definitely the biggest thing that needs to get figured out for them.
Absolutely. So we're gonna talk about Celtics and the Mavs next week. Really break down what we've seen from them on the floor, their strengths, their weaknesses, the type of defense they like to get to, type of offense they like to get to, and see how they really match up, because we don't have a great look at that comparing it to the last series. Pacers are such a different beast. Wolves are such a different beast. But anything else, any other closing thoughts on these teams as we approach what should be a very fun finals? I think a little more fun than last year too, because I don't think we expected the Heat and the Nuggets to go very far. But
no, I think we should have a much better matchup than we got last year. Last year, I had every expectation of a sweep. This year, not so much. Having both teams with like legit lead stars, and you could make the argument they could match each other. Like, look at it this way: Kyrie and Luka combining for 51.6 points per game in the playoffs. Tatum and Brown combining for 51 points per game. Like, this is going to be a real battle, and I think it could be. I know it finished with a blowout, but this series could be as close as the two conference finals started off.
Absolutely. So, my friend, I'm very excited to talk about it. Very excited for this finals, and big picture. Anthony Edwards, farewell, but amazing postseason. I do want to end on that. I want to end on just saying how much of an absolute joy it was to watch Anthony Edwards. I think he was my favorite player to watch aside from Luka and Kyrie in the playoffs. And sad to see him not there. Yes, Jalen Brunson. Give Jalen Brunson your love. Should we have like a March Madness shout out all the players who are no longer with us here. Jalen Brunson, but just looking back overall, like so many great moments. Not like you said, not just from Edwards, Brunson, the whole lot. This has been a great playoff run up to this point, and I'm excited for next week, man.
Yeah, seeing the next iteration of NBA superstars really come to the front was obviously really cool. Anthony Edwards really just showed great attitude, so much fun. Like his interviews and just his attitude out on the floor was just awesome. Showing he has the ability to. He's really risen up. Like his stock has risen so highly, and he's going to be back. There's no doubt about that. Let's not forget he's still 22 years old. But it was awesome to see him have this breakout year, and long let it continue. But yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll go a bit more in depth on the preview of the NBA Finals. But for now, that's going to do it. Thank you, Chris, for joining me. Thank you all so much for listening. Remember, we are everywhere on social media at Coast to Coast NBA. And most importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
Peace out.